the heart of our company is to empower Christian songwriters and artists, and we have a lot of different programs ranging from a very basic kind of song challenge that people go through for a week into our community, and some upper level programs where we actually coach them for anywhere from 8 weeks to 6 months, developing their catalog, developing great songs, recording, building an online digital platform for their music, and really launching who they are as artists. But at the heart of that is an encounter with Christ, because that's me. That's why I've been in Christian music all these years, going back to when I was an 18-year-old and had a dramatic encounter with Christ that keeps me connected to God even unto this day. But yes, the principles of songwriting are pretty generalized unless you're into some specific modern worship styles that may tend to be a little more repetitive, or a little more what we'd say soaking songs, or even when writers are setting verbatim scriptures to music.
Yeah.
So, but the other principles tend to be generally applicable.
I was having a flashback to when, and of course you were with Integrity Music for
Yes.
quite some time. Integrity did the Scripture Memory Songs series
Yes,
for a
we
while.
did.
Was that during your tenure there?
The first 18 months that I was on staff at Integrity Music, I actually was A&R director over 26 scripture memory albums. That's 260
Wow.
verbatim scripture songs with it we wrote from start to finish. And I grew the roster from 9 writers to 18 full-time songwriters during that 1.5 year period, just because we were so just in a whirlwind of creating verbatim songs. You know, those songs stick with me to this day, and they're so beautiful. They went around the world, and I have people still say that those were some of the most impactful albums they've ever been part of.
Wow. John Chisum joining us today, founder and president of Nashville Christian Songwriters, joining us today here in the Meeting House on Faith Radio, National Religious Broadcasters Convention 2026 in Nashville. Well, you were talking, there's a little bit of an aside here. You're talking about the scripture song. Setting scripture to music seems to me it would be something that would be quite challenging. Now, some of the Psalms, obviously, admittedly, would have some patterns that would lend themselves to being set to music, but not all, not the totality of Scripture.
Yeah.
So there has to be obviously some challenge to that.
It really is, because there's a saying that great Scripture does not always make great lyrics, and that's true, right? I mean, we want to be careful when we do that we're not changing or diluting the word in any particular way. Back in the day, when we were doing those scripture memory albums, we did give ourselves the liberty to repeat phrases so that we could actually make a singable song, right? It would be like trying to set the book of Exodus or the Begats, right? Can you imagine trying to sing all the Begats?
Andrew Peterson would have something to say to you on that.
Yeah. But it was very challenging to get something that was singable and memorable, because you could come up with a pattern for any verse and at least try to make it somewhat speakable or singable, but to do something that's song-like and not something that is kind of forced, that was always the challenge.